Welcome to the Festival of Entrepreneurs, recorded live at the NEC in Birmingham. Over the next few minutes, you'll hear from some of the most incredible founders, investors, and business leaders who joined us this year.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this next panel here at the Festival of Entrepreneurs. My name is Matthew Milner. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Entrepreneurs Collective, on us over there on stand B5. And as part of that journey, if anyone's here before, I've been sort of in and around the startup ecosystem for the last 7 years. I guess in the last 2 or 3 years, I've hosted 60 maybe pitch competitions, each with maybe 5 or 6 founders pitching at those. So I've seen my fair share, but I bow down to the expertise of Kostas from Impact Ventures and Kaffy from Confident Voice, who are our panelists for this evening, who are going to give you a guide on, as a founder, what it takes to get up there, to put yourself and your business out in front of investors, win them over, nail that pitch, and secure funding. So please welcome to the stage Kostas and Kaffy. Big round of applause. If I could, I'll just start by asking you to introduce yourself a little bit about your background and what your kind of brings you here today. Kaffy.
Hello, lovely to be here. Yes, I'm Kaffy. I'm a voice and confidence coach. So I basically help people be themselves in public, which actually is sometimes easier said than done. And I work with people who need maybe extra confidence or storytelling or structures for their pitches, their presentations, their one-to-ones even, because some people get really nervous doing one-to-one. It all depends, what you find easy and what you find difficult. So I'm a singer, I just a teacher for a long time, I'm theatre trained, so I bring a sort of performing arts background-esque to how I work.
So I'm Kostas, I'm the founder and CEO of Impact Ventures. For 15 years, I've been co-designing startup initiatives that you could deploy for good competition, series pitching events, run 60 pitching events in 9 cities around the UK. I've run 23 on live for the last 12 months. I'm running a new series of about 6 to 12. And I run a series of conferences around the UK in about 5 or 6 cities. But mostly what I am is I'm a super connecting. So me and my team facilitate thousands of connections between startups, scale-ups, investors, corporates, hospitals, universities, media, charities, we name it. We facilitate those connections, and a lot of them are done before, during, or after pitching events. So, I know this very well.
Excellent stuff. I think what we're going to do is probably tackle this in 3 halves, for want of a better expression. We'll talk about the what with Kostas, the how with Kaffy, and then we'll go to the Q&A at the end there. Any burning questions you've got to get off your chest, we'd love to hear that. So I guess Kostas, investors spend, I think on average, less than 2 minutes looking at a pitch deck. What are your sort of like pro tips on the essential content you've got to have in there to capture their interest and get them to think, actually, that one I saw this morning is worth going back to, spending 5 minutes, thinking about it a bit more, and then getting that meeting with the founder, which is the ultimate goal of that first pitch, is to get a follow-up meeting with their investor.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing to recognize is, what is your audience? Is it that you're engaging an investor via email and you literally have 2 minutes of their time, or is it that you're presenting it in an event and you've got 5 minutes of Q&A, or is it that the investor wants a lot more detail? So once you know who your audience is, maybe how much time you've got and they thought, you can figure out how much time you've got, how many slides you need. In a typical, I would split pitch decks up into 3, and probably nobody looks at it this way. You've got to fit in our eyes, because we see so many pitch decks, you assess a lot of them. You've kind of got a teaser deck that's maybe 5 or 6 slides. It's enough to say, this is the problem, the solution, team, the business model, and I'm looking for X amount of investment. But that's enough to give the high level view of it. The old style kind of business plan might be 40 pages, and an investor will probably only read the executive summary. That's probably the level of detail. Anybody that's university now, and universities are they're revising their business plan, etc. But the investor will probably only read the executive summary and the key headlines. But I would say that the teaser deck event, those are the 5 slides you need. But then you have other decks that you're presenting. So we run a lot of kitchen events, and the very minimum will give somebody 5 minutes, but sometimes 10. and it's like a minute a slide. So instead of all those other details, the investors or the corporates or whoever the client is and the audience is also going to want to know, okay, you want 300,000, but how are you going to spend it? And what is the customer acquisition strategy to then get those customers that you said, are you going to then spend X amount from investing in a chief revenue officer or business development director? They don't just want to see faces on a slide saying, this is my team. They want to know what their backgrounds are. They want to know that you've got an advisory board, a rockstar advisory board that can either open doors, be cheerleaders for you, or actually operationally work for the team. There's going to be these extra slides that de-risk the situation for somebody. And finally, in that kind of more in-depth, what I would say, under the hood depth, it's kind of where you've got past the pitch and the investor is distributed to more people on the investment committee and has kind of pitched you already, but there's questions. And so maybe there's a slide deck that's 15, 20 slides that goes a bit further and it shows cash flow forecast for 3 to 5 years. It shows details about the products, not like gigs, you don't want to give that away, but more about how it works, or more about the features than the benefits, and just more detail that outlines what you've said, but in an executional way, so that you could just think to yourself, this addresses any question that I might get asked. So yeah, that's how I'd split it up.
Okay, so I think to even further elaborate on that, you've categorized into 3 main types of deck. You're on stage, lightweight, focuses on the founder when they're talking. The email teaser deck, which is the one you initially send out, and then the sort of deeper dive, they've asked for more information. I would probably suggest you could go a step further if you have time to have a couple of different versions of the email and the follow-up deck, depending on, as you said, exactly on who you're speaking to. So if it's you're pitching to an impact fund, okay, let's lean into the social impact. If it's an environmental fund, how much carbon are you removing? These are elements which be of less interest to an agnostic fund who's just picking up a return as an investor. So really think about and tuning to your audience that you're speaking to, as well as the scenario. I think very engaged.
Good one. I think this is a great point, because it's about getting the tone of voice right for that audience, knowing what the KPIs that they're talking about are, the key performance indicators, knowing the language, the jargon that they use. Is essentially a similar way a decision maker looks at it. You want them to say to themselves, I should say, they can help me get to my goals, my remit. This is an easy decision. So yeah, we do that as well. We suggest that they do a tailored deck to the audience. It's kind of like you're applying for a job and you'll do a tailored kind of. I'm applying for a developing position versus I'm applying for a fashion designer position, etc. Sorry, all the time.
Sadly, as well, the first person who looks at your deck is an associate, an analyst. It's a lower level sort of employee if you're pitching the venture, and they have a checklist that they're sort of mentally running through the things they want to see. And if you could tick all those boxes for them, they're a lot more confident to take this to a principal or a partner. So this is a startup library you should take to investor. So tailoring your message and understanding what they're looking for, ticking those boxes, I think is crucial. Talked about one of the things you definitely should do, ticking the boxes with founders. Any other sort of classic mistakes that you would suggest people avoid, or any real green flags like this has always worked super well for us, Kaffy?
I think that's the design element. If the text is too small, or there is too much text on a slide, that is a red flag, because investors don't have a lot of time. There is a rule out there called the 10-20-30 rule, where you have 10 slides that you deliver over 20 minutes, and the text size, let's say 10 pt is 30, so it tends to be you've got 10 slides in your 20 minutes to present it, if that is the amount of time. But definitely the style, definitely that. I would also say, like I said before, the team slide, not just having the name, space, title, organization, but like some bullet points. Their background is that they work for these types of companies, etc. This is their role that they play this. That really helps to have that in there.
I love this borrowed credibility. I think on your team slide, as your person worked in the industry before that you're in, If they haven't, have they worked at a big blue chip? They were former McKinsey, former IBM. Okay, IBM and McKinsey hire good people. You can borrow some of that credibility and add it to our own team.
Can I just add one thing about slide deck there? I actually do a talk myself with 7 presentation pitfalls, and you'd be surprised how easy it is to fall into any one place. But the worst thing I see with slide decks is not only far too much text, but in capital letters, and the people hits like the whole screen of text in capital letters, and the presenter literally just reads from the top to the bottom of it. And the reason this is so bad is that everyone processes information differently. Now, for some people, they will give that a scan, and then they're like, why is this person still talking? And for other people, they're like, why is this person talking and expecting me to read? Which one do they want me to do? So it really puts people off. And of course, people tend to turn their back as well on the audience, which we don't want to do. But yeah, there is an art to delivering a decent slide deck, isn't there?
Have you ever accidentally watched a movie with subtitles and the sound on and found it was ruining your enjoyment? Yeah, okay. Don't want to be reading what's on the screen. It's a person thing. I guess if we focus in then on the sort of the on-stage pitch elements, and I think my colleague is a creative director for a number of fashion startups. He used a quote by, I think it was Anton de Saint-Exupéry. There's a French name. He was a famous designer, poet, writer, and aviator in the 1920s. He said, "Perfection is not when there is nothing more to add, but when there's nothing left to take away." I think when it comes to pitch decks on stage, having less is more is the general rule for what's on slides. Investing in early stage startups, typically the startups, the stage where you pitch on stage, it's an 8-year plus journey for those first investors, and they're investing as much in the founder as they are in the business. That business is going to pivot several times in that lifestyle, and they need to believe that that founder is the person who's going to take that company on its journey to eventual exit or return of their way. So having walls of text that they're focusing on, having a video, having excessive animations are all things that distract from the connection you, the founder, with the audience, and I would advise against. But for a lot of founders, though, this might be their first time up on stage. Kaffy, what's the sort of starting advice you would give for a founder who's approaching a pitch competition, who's never done this before?
Well, I think to continue the slide deck theme, I normally advise people to start with 2 questions. One, why do I care? And secondly, why am I here? And this was what he was saying before about the audience and the jargon and the language, because it depends very much who is in the audience as to how you're going to make that pitch. You're not going to give the same pitch to all different sets of investors, are you? There's going to be things that you want to bring out. So they should be writing a different slide deck for every occasion. But why do I care and why am I here? If you don't know why you care about something, you really can't expect anybody else to. There has to be a sort of passion that really shines through as to why you are there pitching that idea at that time. And as I say, why am I here? Why am I here in this room? Not am I giving the same presentation I gave last week in the week? Why am I here now? What did these investors or what does this audience want to hear from them? And having had that focus, I mean, it's really interesting when you said about the other human assets that they're working with, and how important the humans are. I think it was Warren Buffett that said it best when he said that ideas are worthless unless you can get it across, in a way that's going to touch people's eyes. I mean, can I ask you, Costa, what do you see in people that are successful, in people that you would be persuaded by? What do you see in them? Is it a spark? What is it that you see?
I think, they asked me, it's a really question on another stage, and it is about people. You can have all the right signals, all the right, they've got a pitch deck right, and they've got product right, and so on. I like to look at passion also. Do they get it? Are they trying to change the world? Are they trying to make an aggregate social impact, directly or indirectly? Do they want to bring on people for the journey? Do they want to bring on people that then they recognise are as good as though, if not better? It's not the me show. They're credible? Do they pay their suppliers on time? It's all these factors Whether you're an investor, whether you're, I think, doing business with somebody that kind of de-risks will make you want to work with that person.
The trust is in the title of this very seminar, actually.
And do you find from a storytelling angle, I remember I heard recently, because Danny Priestley, that said the key looks for a story that goes way back. Not a flash in the pan idea, I'm doing this week. He looks for people who've returned to an idea over a period of time. And that might, as you say, a social angle, someone who's looked to help people in similar ways over a period of time, and now they're bringing in this idea. And he finds that length of story, that depth of story really compelling.
Yeah, I mean, some of the best startups and scale-ups that we work with. I mean, we run a global technical competition, so it's the best emerging companies, and a lot of it came from their grandmother had a fall or had dementia, and they go, why is there not a solution on the market? I'm going to create this on, and it's easier for my grandmother. So there's a story, and it's quite personal. Or somebody's got a food intolerance, and there's not a solution for them, and they feel kind of isolated, so they create something. That kind of storytelling is it's genuine, it's real, and that's what people invest in. It's trust that they're in it for the right reasons. I mean, even with my own like journey, everything that I do now, running pitching events and health tech conferences and so on, it came from something. It came from just running very small events, realizing that people need connections, realizing that other people look at them and say, "Oh, you're a student. They're too early in your journey. I'm not going to help you," and realizing that there must be some other way, and then scaling, that up. So the storytelling is so key to get that right. Not just for the audience, but also your team, your shareholders, your partner as well, who sees you slogging the guts out. Is that we're doing this for a bigger purpose.
There's a great phrase, which is that we live storied lives or storied landscapes. Yeah, it really describes, and we do. Our brains love a narrative, and also linked to this, you'll know about the limbic, the emotional system in the brain. There's a limit to how much sort of data, cognitive stuff we can take on at any one time. If you remember your lectures from university, if it's very, very dry, very data-led, you switch off quite quickly. If you had a lecturer, say, who threw in the odd joke or the odd sort of cultural reference, it wakes you up. And this is what the limbic system does for us. So when we hear something, like you just said, your grandmother, or something like, when we hear about a family member or a personal anecdote or something fun that has happened, our limbic brain goes, oh, I'll pay more attention. And then you can take on a bit more data, and a bit more graphics or whatever it is. So this is what stories do for us. And I think sometimes when people are pitching an idea, they think, oh, it's all about the concept or the product, or it's, and actually you've got to get that investment hand. You've got to get over the line with whatever it is you're trying to get across, and a story is so powerful to do that. You'll get much more personal buy-in, like you're saying. It's the heart, isn't it, as well as the head.
This discussion, it's not prepared. There's no pre-defined questions. They just ask, we're talking, it's from the heart. People buy into that. It's the emotion behind the
I think to dial in a little bit more on this sort of trust element, and I think a founder who's coming at this from a very personal place, and they're working on that passion project, but they can step on stage and they can lose that trust. I think by making some simple mistakes. I think an overconfident founder can lose it very easily by we're in conversations with IBM, Nvidia, and Oracle. Okay. If the onion is peeled a little bit and they send an email from 6 months ago, they got a response that says, send us more information. You're not in conversation. You don't overegg the kind of, you're founders, you're tempted to, be optimistic and push the boundaries there. But that'll be one of my pro tips. Most pitches are followed by a Q&A. and you will quite quickly find that that slight exaggeration is cleaned up as a lie. You don't walk that line careful. Any other sort of trust losers that you've seen?
I think tension doesn't help. Tension in the voice. When it comes to nerves, because some people say, oh, I'm a really anxious speaker, this gets in the way. And actually nerves, people don't mind nerves. Everybody understands nerves. If you're a bit nervous, everybody gets that. And actually, usually people are very, very sympathetic if you are a nervous speaker. But tension, so for example, if I demonstrate, if I tense up my throat like this, you can hear that my tone now is sounding not just nervous, but I'm sounding not really convinced by what I'm saying. I think that is a trust loser. And that often happens when there is a disjunct, like I said before, about the why do I care and why am I here? You hear this most of all in people that are not certain about what they're presenting. Sometimes you get people who are presenting for other people. So sometimes, maybe the owner of the concept thinks they're too nervous to do the pitch themselves. They put someone else up for it. Do you know what I mean? So if the person who's presenting, if it's not their thing, if it's not their concept, and they're not, really happy with it all, and also maybe they're thrown into it and they don't know exactly who's in the audience, they're not prepped, whatever the reason is, as soon as you hear that sort of the tension in the voice, it makes everybody in the room nervous. I don't want to make, do you know what I'm saying? I don't want to make you all nervous. I can be nervous myself, and if I'm nervous myself, that will tend to come across in a bit of a shaky tone, maybe like this. This would be shaky, but it's still convincing. You will just think I'm nervous. But it's the tension. Yeah, so I think that's a trust loser. I don't know what you think about that.
Let me ask you a question. How do you prepare somebody for that, knowing that might happen, knowing the person might be that way, maybe because they're nervous, or maybe because they're overconfident, and then your client, how could this happen?
So there's a huge science around audiences. One of the things that people often fear is they look out, so like we might be looking out right now and I see that this young man here has been smiling and nodding, I like you, I'll look at you some more. But some people I might look at and they might look very, very serious, they might look not interested. Now I can tell you this, I've been performing all my life, sometimes when people are thinking very deeply, they don't feel the need to communicate with you. So imagine if you're sitting in a cinema, you don't communicate with the cinema screen like, oh, it's you. You just sit there and watch. And this is what happens to audience members. When you are part of an audience, even if I'm looking directly at you, you won't think like I'm talking directly to you, so you can be blank. So sometimes people are afraid of that, but it might just be that people are thinking very, very deep. So it's things like that, understanding how an audience reacts. Eye contact, some people look at and they're like, oh, so many eyes. So you can trick your brain by talking to one person at a time. I can look at you and I can deliver something to you. My brain's very happy right now. I'm talking to one person. And I can pick someone else and I can talk to you and my brain's happy. So there's loads and loads of things. You can build public speaking confidence. I'm not the only speaking coach here today. I've met a few. And there are loads of different types of speaking coaches that will come at it from different angles. But everyone will tell you, public speaking, it's a skill set. Confidence in front of people, it's a skill set. If you set out to learn it, you can learn it, you can develop, you can become better.
The next best thing to being confident is acting confident, as they always say. One thing, you mentioned that eye contact, I think that's a really important thing. I like you, I've tried to look at a few people and I've seen some smiles and nods and that's egged me on, and actually I found my confidence has risen as we've got through this presentation. What doesn't work, I think, is those people who fix on a spot in the distance. They're too scared to look at anybody, so they find a spot on the wall, they robotically stare at it. That's a mistake I've seen was making in an effort to try and avoid that fear of people. They actually detach themselves from the situation and then they lose their audience.
Fit into both of the points. So the first point about like losing the trust. Sometimes it's like you not reading the room, basically, and not recognizing that times have changed and there's certain things you can't say these days. Maybe somebody from the old generation might say that could be perceived as quite offensive or etc. But they just carry on this crusade, and that can lose the trust and the reputation as well. And other times it can be different. I mean, all the things we're discussing there, it doesn't have to be pitching. It can be networking. You know, got 30 seconds to tell somebody on an exhibition stand, like who you are and what you do and so on. It can be a group of people. All these elements are so important to those points. So like, yeah, read the room, and if you can, research like your audience in terms of who's on the panel, what their background is, and it enables you to lean into that or listen to the news of what's prominent on that day. So that's the part about the trust, and I guess the part about the presenting and engaging people. It's just, I think it's just really recognizing, as I say, that tension build up, and how to avoid it, and this is this interaction between us here and yourselves there. It's a relationship, because you know, if somebody's looking at their phone or looking down, they get nervous, maybe they're busy, etc. But it's kind of a two-way, because if you're not listening, can't ask a question that might solve a problem that I've really thought, you might miss what's been said and jump to the next thing, and then nobody will start the street.
Yeah, and also I think when you are in front of people like this, or even as you say, at exhibition stand or network or whatever, when you're the one speaking, you can curate the energy. It's probably worth mentioning mirror neurons at this point. So we have these mirror neurons that we automatically sort of mirror the person in front of us. So if I suddenly get massively into it all, I will see smiles. If I start giving you a heap more energy, you will give me more energy back. So you can, to an extent, curate. You know, if you get a quiet, I mean, all stand-up comics know this. You know, if you get a quiet room, you give them more energy. If people are giving you blockers, if you know, in networking, people are giving you blockers, then a good way of breaking them out of that is to use, I can't really do this, I'm holding a microphone, but to use asymmetrical movements. So generally when we agree, we use symmetrical movements. If somebody is sort of saying, oh, you know, no, I'm not interested, you can, we often tilt our heads to questions, don't we? To tilt your head, okay, so tell me why. And as soon as you sort of do the asymmetrical movements, their brain's gone, oh, okay, I need to rethink. So there's a lot that we can do to curate the energy in the room, and to get, if we want a particular response. But sometimes people will absorb the energy in the room, then they'll come off the stage and go, oh, that was a really dead room. And I'm thinking, well, why didn't you wake them up then? You were the one stood there with the microphone. You know, it's not your responsibility to give me energy right now. It is our responsibility to give you, what you've come to hear. And if you want to give us a bit back, great. If you want to give us a standing ovation at the end, fantastic. That's not your responsibility. In this present time, it's our responsibility to give you the energy, to give you hopefully the benefit of our expertise, and to help as well. And that's what we are here to do.
Just conscious of time, unfortunately, because it was a great conversation. I'd love to hear more, but I do want to give some time for Q&A with the audience. I'm just going to ask one question myself. Kaffy, we discussed this one slightly earlier. Kostas, going to surprise you with it. Learn a script or learn your pitch, Kaffy?
Don't learn a script. It's very obvious when people have memorized things. It's a bit like, imagine if you hear somebody reading something versus convert. If you switch the radio on, you will know immediately if that's like a radio play or whether it's people in conversation, won't you? There's just a way that people do things. And if you learn a script and recite it, not only are you risking, say you get nervous and you forget a bit, and then your mind's going blank because you're thinking, oh, I missed that bit out. But also it just won't feel as real. Like, we haven't rehearsed, any of us. We've never met. And you will be able to tell that we've not rehearsed it, and you know that you are listening to a live conversation in the moment, and you're responding to that. If we'd all memorized little bits that we wanted to say and recited them, it would be a very different conversation. So I think definitely comes back again to, why do I care? Why am I here? If you care enough, and if you understand your audience enough, you can speak. Obviously you have talking points, obviously you have, if going to your side, obviously, But you should be speaking from your heart, from your knowledge about your concept, and focusing on that audience at that time in that mood. And you can't ever really prep for that.
Yeah, I mean, with founders, definitely don't have a script. I mean, you see it on Dragon's Den all the time. Somebody's doing it and you think, oh, this is natural. And then they get anxious or miss their cue on something. And they're like, oh, and then the dragon can tell straight away. Or they ask you, they interject in a pitch and they're like, oh, so what is your profit? And they're like, well, you just said your gross is, but you haven't registered on that. And you can tell it's recited. It's not taste the word. So doing it quite natural, like knowing your business, your products, your numbers, knowing everything inside out, so that you can read the room. You know, who's in the room. You're pitching to a room full of investors. You're pitching to a room full of decision makers in corporate organizations. You can know that and tailor what you say from what you were saying earlier about tailoring the messaging, the tone of voice, the jargon, the KPIs that they need to hear, etc. On the other side, you know, when we run events, we run these tech conferences, my team always prepares a script for me because we run a lot of virtual events. And I ever read it and I really aggravate our director of operations. And I say, I just need to listen to the people before me. I need to hear what they're saying on the live camera at a virtual event or the partners beforehand, so I can lean into what's being said and adapt. It's good to have there as a prompt, because I tend to go off on a tangent. So there's a time and a place. In a pitch, there's not time for having a script. In a virtual event where you've literally got like 90 minutes to get through 15 pitches, a script can be useful. And live TV or anything, it can be useful. And the virtual events are can be very good for scripts because everybody knows what's to be said, but it leaves chance for somebody to ask a question for you to adapt and be flexible. So time and place, really.
Okay.
I'll just add one little thing to that. I often advise people to learn or overlearn just the first couple of sentences. And the reason for that is that most of us feel a stress response surge right before we start. So even if you're fine off stage, usually pretty much everybody, when you first come onto the stage and suddenly they're looking at you and it's your turn, you feel that sort of stress response surge in the brain. Now at that point, it's really good to have just the first couple of lines memorized, because then you can say those couple of lines, you can calm yourself down. You can, because not everyone's familiar with microphones as well, you can use that to sort of tune in to, is my voice coming from 18 directions at once? So if you've memorized that, literally just the first couple of lines, not the rest of it. It just gives you a little bit of insurance, and then you're thinking, this is going well. This is, I'm okay. I've got through the first, I've not sort of fallen off the stage. I've actually managed to start speaking. So yeah, just the first couple.
Brilliant stuff. I was going to ad-lib one pro tip. I was quite inspired by Kostas earlier. He talked about that team slide and make sure you just use some logos and don't have a wall of text for each one. That borrowed credibility. One thing I've seen founders do very badly is to have their final slide, which is normally up for 6 or 5 or 6 minutes during the Q&A, and it says thank you or any questions. Now, your contact details aren't on there if there's an investor in the room. That's a basic mistake. But also you can make it work so much harder for you. Is there a bit of credibility you can attach? Maybe you've got 5 stars on Trustpilot. Maybe you've got some column inches in an industry publication. Have something else just working for you in the background on that slide. The audience is sitting there. They're hearing your answers from you. They're hearing the questions from the judges. Their eyes are flicking to the screen again. Make that last 5 minutes work a little bit harder for me than a thank you or an any questions slide. That's one of my last minute tips. I'll go to the audience for Q&A. If you've got any final tips like that, we'll drop this at the end, or if you've got one now to hand that you want to...
Should we see what the questions are?
Sure. Check there. We don't have a mic on the side. So the audience benefits from your question as well.
Okay, thank you. So you need 3 different types of decks. Yes, in the visual CD of that detail, can I be sent like a 1-pager word, except And what type of presentation should it be? Should it be discussion, guide notes? Should it be literally design it perfect? But
There's not a standard way. Most investors will like to see a very sharp teaser deck, but we've got some investment partners on day one, Mirror and Invest, who will reply and say, I just want to see a 2-page executive summary, something that's how I read things. So it's going with the teaser deck, going with a 1-pager for them to say, okay, this is great, I want to read more, give me something more, give me 5 pages, give me 10 pages. Or they might say to you, fill in our application form, which answers the questions that I need to know as the investor or as the investment vehicle in order to decide. Like Angel's there, know one of our partners, and somebody will attach a pitch deck and they'll reply and they'll say, that's great, but please set up a profile, answer these questions, and please also attach this deck. Please make sure it includes this information. But you have to do what's right for you. At least put some styling into it. So it looks like you put some energy into it, rather than I'll just open a new Word file and I'll throw a load of words into it, and make sure it's you and not AI. Because there are words that AI creates that just keep the investors or any audience knows that just doesn't sound. You just want to use that word. Or if you do, definitely. They might call you up on it and it might be like, oh, well, you use this all the time. So consider that. There is a title placement for AI. You can use it for spell check. You can use it to say, is there a more polite way to say this? Or formal or shorter. I write loads of words like that and I just get it to do it like that. But it has to sound like you.
I think one of the things you just about professionally should have a professionally designed pitch deck. I think if you've got a lot of founders, a 1-pager, okay. All right, then we're probably not for that. But I would say, one of the tools, the things I think you can use AI for is if you've got your Sequoia format, 8 to 10 slide deck or 5 slide deck, and you're confident in the information that you've written and the bullet points you want to convey, putting it into Canva and the Copilot there and saying, please apply by website branding and color scheme to make this look slicker. Choose a font, match the fonts, match the styling. I think is a shortcut that most founders can have rather than paying a design agency thousands of pounds to do that for you. I think that's where you can leverage AI. Is it a lot of the content?
Can I jump into that? So Canva's great, and as a free tool, and you can pay for it as well, and it's got templates and so on. But I've started using a tool that's even better than Canva, like Canva on steroids, where you take a Google Doc that is your 1-page summary, and you put it into this tool called Gamma, GAMMA app or .ai. I'm not selling for these guys, but and then you literally input a Google Drive and you say, I want it to be a pitch deck and I want it to have this style, this is my branding, etc. And literally it will just pop out with AI your information, this kind of pager or 2 pages, throw 10 pages into it, and it will put it into a pitch deck structure. It will have icons and photos and the layout and so on, and it just does it in seconds. And then you can just adjust it to feel like what feels right for you. So using something like that, don't have a designer, it works out very, very well.
At one point, as we were you article, you said often a VC's got a website where you submit your pitch deck, follow their instructions. That's step number 1. If they ask for a video pitch deck, then send them the PDF. Angels, interestingly, I was speaking to them on a panel a couple of weeks back, and they all said we use little tricks to assess whether our founder can follow instructions. It's not the be all and end all, but it just helps to build some trust. If they say, can you send me your pitch deck over in this format, send it in that format, okay? They might want PDF because they've got a drive that they share, they drop that into a drive, they share some other angels that they know. If you send them a password protected doc sampling, they're just going to get a little bit miffed at that very first touch point, and then again, you're losing trust that they've already gone through.
And actually apply that to presentations as well. If they say 5 minutes, it needs to be 5 minutes. And you need to not get to sort of slide 17 or 20 and then someone gives you the nod, I'll just rattle through this. So we've got, that completely undermines you. You can practice whatever the timings are, stick to those timings, finish strong. No one's going to be cross if you finish early, but they don't want you to finish late, and they don't want you to babble the last few slides either. So you need practice.
You could say to them, like, talk about the subject for a long time, and I haven't spoke about this, and I do have the slides, I might end it. But if you've got further questions, please ask me, and I'll flick to it, and I'll talk around it as the time of the answer.
I always suggest to say, let's get a meeting in the diary, Mr. Investor, afterwards to dive into that. Job done. Any further questions?
This is all about the number of slides. She said to speak pretty, I really like the body pop would be best to come. First slide rather than those are slides that you should already know, but probably that's good. But after it's minimizing the size,
How many? The question is, what's the number of slides? Is it better to have more or less? I mean, more or less. Less is more, because if you have less, then you have the control to choose how long you talk on those 5 slides. You can make 5 slides last 30 minutes if you needed to, but having more, you might have that situation of rushing all the way through it.
I would say also have a think about, bearing in mind how much time you have a think about how we like to receive information. So if you can, for example, break down, if there's 3 main points, say, you would have an introduction, your 3 points, and your conclusion. And those, say, 3 points, you'd want them formatted in the same way, with the number the same size or whatever, because what you don't want is a sort of higgledy-piggledy, and don't use too many fonts. We've not even got into that. Like, don't use endless fonts. But generally, and like you were saying earlier, Foster, normally something like a couple of minutes per slide, and have them even. Don't have sort of 3 short slides and then talk for 7 minutes on one side, because the people watching are like, what's going on? We like to understand the ebb and flow of a story, and we like stories that have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's often quite good at the beginning to prep people. So I'm going to talk to you about this and this and this, and I'm going to put it together, because then they're like, oh, okay. So then as you're moving through, they kind of know where they're going, and this makes for happy brains. But in terms of a number of slides, it depends how many minutes you've got, but I think the 2 minute per slide is a good guide.
Yeah, I mean, last weekend I was in Guernsey. I flew to Guernsey to deliver my session, Becoming a Rockstar Never, and usually my audience is tech startups or professionals. This was for travel agencies and tour operators. And I really had to sit down and rework my slides for that audience, so that it wasn't just about professional, but it was about tour operators, it was about suppliers, vendors, and so on. And that length, and how much time I was going to be able to keep their attention, and take away all the other terminology that I might use to explain impact, and instead just bring it right down to the crux of it, and so the slide numbers. I think I had about 20 slides. I had an hour to deliver. I could have picked 30 and had it. So yeah.
And if I can add to that, one thing I try to hammer into people is that you are the talk, not the PowerPoint. If they wanted a PowerPoint, they can have it by email. If you are there in front of them, you are the talk. So have, the keywords or key images, or your 5 stars on Trustpilot, or a photo of you with someone important, whatever it is. But the talk is about you. They are looking to invest in you, not how beautiful your slides are. So make sure that you are compelling. Hopefully we have a beautiful slide deck, but make sure that you, when you're presenting, that you are confident and compelling and clear and concise and composed. If you are all of those things, then the slide deck probably will take care of itself.
Unfortunately, we were 5 minutes, like Ted Baker away made Kostas.
Yeah.
5 minutes. But we're running slightly over. I've got one final question here at the end, and then I think if you want to approach us afterwards, we'd be happy to take any further questions. But last one for the audience, please.
Well, my question is, Kostas, you said that you do networking for pitches. Is this typically purely only in the tech space, or do you also work in other industries?
No, we work across our plate. Non-profit, education, health. I've felt fashion businesses, I've felt clothing businesses, because at the end of the day, every business has very similar challenges, whether you're an idea or whether it's a fully fledged venture, it's a scale-up, etc. And there's certain connections that can help those types of teams. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to leave you with two things. On the pitch deck side, if anybody wants a pitch deck template, because we run so many pitch sessions, we actually analyzed hundreds of pitch decks and we created a template of this is what slides you need, whether it's for an investment deck or a customer deck, and it kind of color codes and says include this in investor deck, include this in a full deck, and then it tells you bullet points on that slide, include this, this, this. And that's because we run pitch sessions, so we need to tell our founders that are pitching what is expected from the audit. If we run a good competition, we need to tell them that the judges that are reviewing the applications what to expect. So if you want that, I've got a digital business card that you can come and scan and get my details. I'll send them to you. And the second thing is, if anybody wants free connections, like 3 or 4, just for sticking in the session, there's a form on here, and if you fill that super deck form in, my team will facilitate introductions, and there's people in this audience that have had the benefit of lots of connections, lots of conversations. So yeah, feel free to come up.
Thanks, you. I definitely will. One last question. In terms of after you've done that pitch, in terms of best practice, is it best to wait for an investor to kind of then approach you, or should I then say, what's your details, or do I then follow up and kind of see that?
The way I'd answer that is, it depends if you're taking a scattered approach to approach lots of people, and the volume in the pipeline is a lot, or it's a tailored approach and you've only got 5 possible investors. But I'd reach out after a week, say, oh, down, what's up? If they still don't respond, follow up in a second time, then say, I've still not heard, but I just thought I'd let you know we've been talking to these people, this is the progress I've made, etc. And I'd really like to hear from you. But if I don't hear from you, thank you for your consideration. Thank you for the opportunity. Just say thank you. And that might strike something in them to say, oh, we should really reply to this, etc. So yeah, but don't hound them. Don't be a salesperson. Chase them, because that will put it off. Because the timing might not be right now. Even if they don't respond, down the line, you could reach out again in 6 months' time, or they might reach out to you and say, oh, you reached out, sorry, we didn't get back to you, but now is the time. Well,
and following from that, if I can leave one last thing, it would be connection over perfection. There is no such thing as a perfect pitch. If you have connected with those people in that room, that's always something you can follow up on. So try and bring your whole self. We like other humans. We are human. We like other people. So try to bring your whole self. Don't go all in on being perfect and professional. It will never be perfect. It doesn't matter what you do to it. It will never be perfect. Connection always over perfection.
I'd say definitely don't harass, but at the same time, God gives to those who take. All right. So if you've been on a pitch competition, you've seen the 3 judges over there, you've just pitched to them, approach them afterwards. Connect on their LinkedIn. And then don't wait for them and hope, especially if it's angels, okay? Definitely don't wait for them to follow up with you. Touch base the next day or the day after, say, great to meet you, love to, your questions really triggered something in me. Is it possible to continue the conversation, to set up a coffee, pick your brains or something like this? A lot of what I find that they do at the Entrepreneurs Collective, I've got founders up on stage and they pitch, and the investors are fairly positive, they ask them the questions, they talk afterwards. And then I might talk to the investor a week later and say, oh, how'd it go with? You seem really interested in X. And they're like, yeah, I never really heard back from the guy. And the founder has just let that one slip through his fingers. And so normally what I do is I find the founder and I say, guy, what happened with that investor? They seem quite interested. Give them a call. Is it just phone them? But if he gave you their number, what do you do? Somebody gives you their phone number on Tinder. What do you do with that? Yeah? You phone them. People are very scared to the phone. And then get that real conversation going and take it from there. You feel out for each other then when there's a founder-investor fit. Is there or not? But yeah, definitely try and take advantage of that connection that you have. Yeah, leverage it as best you can.
Thanks for watching this special episode from the Festival of Entrepreneurs. Our mission is simple: to help founders and business owners grow faster, think bigger, and take action. And if you were part of the event, thank you for joining us and being part of the community. And if you missed it, don't worry. We'll be back with even more ideas, inspiration, and opportunities to help you take your business to the next level. You can find out more and register for future events at festivalofentrepreneurs.co.uk.